Extra Thick!
What's poppin' YouTube? Extra Thick Games back at it again, and we've got a bit of a different kind of video for y'all today. This one's kind of unique. We got my friend here from Locals. Want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jason. Nice to meet you.
So this is Jason right here, and we never actually played against each other in local tournaments. We always play friendlies and whatnot. And this one time, I went ahead and just dropped the Nightmare Ibli on him. And then he starts going off into something interesting about how this card's lore connects into, like, this whole other archetype. And I'm like, what on earth are you talking about, sir? And he starts going into it, and I'm like, okay, we got to finish the game up real quick. But I was genuinely interested by this, and I was like, if you would, I would love to hear about this on the channel in depth. And he so kindly agreed to tell us the whole story about, I guess, the Mekk-Knights, the Knightmares, and whatever else is involved in this crazy story. So I'm just going to go ahead and let him take it from here.
All right. How you doing this evening? This starts off with a tale of three friends. We are talking about Ib, we are talking about Avram, and we are talking about Ningirsu. Now, they're traveling one day, and Lady Ilp finds the World Legacy Chalice. World Legacy Chalice. Now, when she finds the World Legacy Chalice, she points it out to her friends Avram and Ningirsu. When they go into the World Legacy Chalice, she discovers the World Legacy's heart. And she also meets Lee, the World Chalice Fairy. When she meets Lee, the World Chalice Fairy, they are all bestowed with armor. Avram becomes the chosen by the World Chalice. Ib becomes the crowned by the World Chalice. And then Ningirsu becomes the beckoned by the World Chalice. So, little do we know, in their world there are Mekk-Knights. The Mekk-Knights are crawlers. This crawler is a Crusadia crawler, and we'll get into that much later.
There are so many archetypes just spanning in this whole lore, and it's just absolutely fascinating to hear about.
So many archetypes. Now, what happens is they become empowered. There are so many other monsters that go into this archetype, but we're just going to deal with these three. Ib becomes the World Chalice Priestess. She gains her armor. Avram becomes the World Chalice Blade Master. And Ningirsu becomes
A secret rare.
a secret rare, definitely, the World Chalice Warrior. Now, he is the strongest of the three. One day, while they're fighting these Mekk-Knights, they get surrounded. They get surrounded.
By the pawns?
By the pawns. The Mekk-Knights are pawns of the old World Chalice relics, like the World Chalice Lance, the World Chalice Armor. Those, I believe, were corrupted Mekk-Knights from a time before. We don't know where this lore starts, but we can pretty much see where it's going to end. Now, what happens is, when they get surrounded, they actually flee. I do not have that card in possession, but as they are fleeing, Lee turns into a darker form of himself. Gets darker. As they flee deeper out, they escape the pawns, but what happens is Lee actually kidnaps Ib. Lee was actually corrupt. When Lee kidnaps Ib, what happens before she turns into Nightmare Ibli is she learns of Lee's corruption. As you can see, he's jet black, smiling with a grimace. He's ready to mess up something.
And then went over to the dark side.
Went over to the dark side. What happens is Ibli, who is the World Chalice Priestess, meaning she's the one who knows more about the World Chalice than Avram or Ningirsu, gets possessed by the World Chalice. as she's possessed by the world chalice, something happens. Avram actually comes into contact with, I believe, it was just his swords. Something in the swords that were given to him by the world challenge, because he actually becomes the first Mekk-Knight. I don't have that card in possession, but it's an actual normal monster card who has 2 swords, and that's Mekk-Knight Avram. Now, as he is becoming fully aware of what's going on, he starts to change. When he does, he realizes that the Mekk-Knights are actually good. Now, something happens, and Ibli corrupts the cores of the Mekk-Knights. A battle ensues between Ibli, Avram, and Ningirsu.
Those were the 3 friends, and they turned into the Nightmare Links.
Yep.
Oh, man.
See, she corrupts all of the Mekk-Knights, and the nightmares that we see are corrupted versions of the Mekk-Knights. Now, what happens later is there's a glimpse of World Legacy's memory. This is the time before I was speaking of earlier. World Legacy's memory actually shares a blueprint in the corner of a Mekk-Knight called Mekk-Knight Morning Star. There's a little known thing, but when the Mekk-Knights were fighting, like Ibli must have been way more powerful than we actually can imagine, because when the Mekk-Knights combined, which is what they were doing in World Legacy's Pawn, they turned into Mekk-Knight Supreme, which is pretty unbeatable. The fact that she can corrupt the cores shows that there's some kind of tie between the World Chalice and the Mekk-Knights. What it is, we don't know. Maybe a program that older civilization did, or we don't know. So, what happens is, they fight Ibli, Avram, Ningirsu. They all fight each other. Now, Ningirsu, I believe, is the lover of Ibli. Most people say that's her brother, but I'm just going to state this plainly. What happens next after this battle leads me to believe otherwise. Now, Ibli is about to kill Avram. Avram and Ningirsu is about to try to stop him, but Avram is down. Ningirsu can't get there in time. What happens is, the good form that still resides in Ibli possesses the bad form. Ib overcomes Ibli and kills herself with Avram's sword.
And this is something that Konami released in the TCG.
Avram was not this form of himself at that time. He was actually Mekk-Knight Avram. He had 2 swords, kind of similar to Mekk-Knight Blue Sky, who also, remember, gave him those 2 swords. So something just leads me to believe that the Mekk-Knights are good. What happens is, after she kills herself, Ningirsu becomes enraged. He separates himself from Avram, obviously because she killed herself, protecting him. If your lover, don't get me wrong, they were all friends, but if your lover kills herself to defend someone else, you understand it, but it just drives you mad. Wouldn't it do the same to you?
Oh, yeah.
So, what happens is, that becomes the beginning of the end for Ningirsu. Ningirsu, in his rage, and I believe he was actually fully in contact with the World Chalice even after her death, went mad with research, delved deeper and deeper and deeper into the World Chalice mysteries, and found something even more important. There are so many cards. Now, Where is it? There's an actual card called Orchestrated. I think it's Return. It depicts Ningirsu as the beckoned of the World Chalice. Okay. Turning into Ningirsu, who is the nemesis in Orchest. What happens is, in the Orchestrated Return, he has Ib's ribbon. His pink ribbon tied around his hand. And he has the sword she killed herself with in the other. Now, in that card it depicts this construct in the back. This construct, Galatea, the Orcus Automaton, is actually a manifestation of Ib's personality, the last of her consciousness, I believe. It's the only thing he could hold on to. He transferred the consciousness of Ib into this automaton. If you look closely at this card, you will also see that the swords that were given to Avram from Mekk-Knight Blue Sky, this is the same sword she killed herself with. Her Reaper Scythe is actually Avram's sword. Now, a long time has passed since this has happened. Ningirsu has started to wage war in the world. Now, since Ningirsu has started to wage war in the world, someone has to stop him from doing so.
We're getting the Crusadias involved.
Now, the funny part about it is, if you look closely, if you go back to when Avram was Mekk-Knight Avram, and she killed herself with that sword, he was only left with one. He becomes Crusadia Maximus. His old friends, this dog, is actually a part of, I don't have that card either, but there's an actual archetype with him in it. Okay? Crusadia Draco is that same dog. I think it's just Mduk. Mduk, definitely. Mduk has grown up. They have found other companions along the way. Other companions to fight against his old friend, Ningirsu, who has become embroiled in dark research, which has led to the World Legacy 1 crashing into the world. Now, there's a trap card. I don't know the name of it. I don't. But there's a trap card which depicts Ningirsu fighting Maximus. These are two friends, old friends turned enemies. We won't know what happens to them next until the guard dragons come out. Will they reconcile? Or will they continue to fight until they end the world?
And that's how the story wraps up for now? Alright, well, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure we all found that story a little more, I guess, just enthralling and all-encompassing than anyone would have thought for, any of the other sort of lore things with, like, Warrior Digrepher or Warrior of Zira or any of them. This is the most in-depth and just amazing on all accounts by far. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Until then, stay thick, YouTube.
Stay thick.
You heard it here, folks. Stay thick.